Hello lovely crafters, welcome to Zuzu's Petals. I'm Annie and this is my online space where I share my quilting and other crafting projects. Today I'm going to be working on something that actually isn't a quilting project. I'm going to be working on these little book bags that I've made for my granddaughter Evelyn's birthday. So she's turning 1 on Monday, and that means on Sunday we're having a little party for her. So instead of party bags, we decided we'd make these little book bags. So they're going to have books and little wooden toys and things in, little shoppers, and they're personalised with each of the children's names on. So I've made 6 of these in 2 colourways. So if you'd like to stay and see how I make these, I'm going to show you the dimensions and how I constructed these bags. I hope that you enjoy the video. So today I'm working on these little book bags for Evelyn's first birthday party, and I'm going to make their names. I'm actually going to put some dark needle cord behind the lettering because that's going to make the name stand out better. So this was a prototype that I made. It's basically a mini shopper. I'm going to give you the dimensions when I get around to making the bag, but first I'm going to show you how I use my die cutter to make these letters that I've appliqued on. So Evelyn's party theme is Evelyn is a whimsical one. So we've gone for these kind of woodland fabrics with little mushrooms and snails and cute bits on. And what I'm doing now is I've cut them into 2-inch squares because the letters on the dies, I'm not sure if they'll show up at all. Well, they do just about. They're about 1.5 inches in height. So 2 inches definitely covers each of those. So I'm about to make Claire's name. So I'm going to put the fabric face side down over each letter, and I've got C, L, I, R and E, and then what I'm going to do is run it through here. So this is my die cutting machine it's a Big Shot by Sizzix, and I can attach links for these machines and for these particular alphabet dies. So you'll see that the letters just pop out of the fabric now. This is our L for Claire's name. Sometimes you have to give a little bit of a tug. It doesn't always cut all the way through. But then any little loose threads, I'll just snip off with pincers. Now that I've got the letters all cut out, they don't really show up very well on here. I'll show you better later on. I'm just going to trim some of the edges. So some of them end up with little sort of frayed edges and little loose cottons, and I just trim them up neatly. Make sure they have a nice defined shape. And now that I've got all of the letters done, I've trimmed any loose threads, and I've got this, it's like an anti-fray. You put this around the edges and it goes like a hard glue, and it just stabilizes the edges. Roughly in place just by eyeballing the spacing. I just run a quick iron over. It helps to set the glue. So I'm going to do this very, very slowly, particularly on a letter with a curve, and lots of stopping and starting and readjusting will be required to get this done. So the little bags themselves are made out of this very heavy duty canvas material. I got this from Hobbycraft, so that's in the UK. So anywhere else in the world, just wherever your nearest craft provider is, you should be able to find just heavy canvas. So I've cut these to 10.5 inches wide by 22 inches long, and they're basically going to be folded with a little seam on the top. I will show you how I make this into these mini shoppers. For the handles, I've done 4 inches by 12, and these are going to be doubled in on themselves like this, a little bit like making binding really, but a bit thicker, and then doubled in again and so on. So they're a nice sturdy handle. So I'll go about showing you how I assemble these bags now. inch little seams at the top and bottom, and this is where our handles are going to go underneath. So I simply held a ruler up against and checked that it was at 1 inch on either side, and made sure that they then lined up nicely, which I think they do. That looks good to go for me. And what I've also done is created this very low-tech bag jig so I can see for the placement of the handles. I'll give you a better view of that now. Also, because this is very thick fabric, I didn't want to double over the seam on here, so I've again used this little anti-fray glue. It's called Fray Check, and I've just put it along the edge because I'm going to be sewing a double seam on here anyway, so it'll keep it down, and a little bit of a raw edge on the inside isn't going to matter too much. I am going to do French seams on the sides anyway, so they'll look tidy inside. But yeah, I'll get on and I'll show you how I'm going to work with my jig that I've made here. So I've basically drawn 2 lines 10.5 centimeters apart, so that's where my bag sits, and then I've measured. These were the rough guesstimate dots that I put on, but I wasn't happy with those, so I've gone, this was the center for the handle, so this is going to be what the handle will look like. It's not sewn yet. So if the center of the handle is there, then I want the outer of the handle on each of these lines. So I'm going to put them in and pin it. Make sure that the handle turn the right way. So yeah, I want it to turn like that. Just grab a couple of pins. And then I'm going to slot this in with the outer side of the handle. Let's just move that up there, up against there. Yeah, that's good. So I'm going to pin that in place. I'm going to pin right in the middle because I'm going to sew right across the top and the bottom. Make sure that you get your handle right up to that top edge. And then again, this is going to be for the outer bit of the handle. I'm actually not going to sew this in right now because I need to sew the handle first. I'm just showing you how I did this. So it's the next day and I need to finish making my handles. So I'm going to show you how I do that, and I'll get on and show you how to construct the actual bags now that I've got all the name labels made. So the name labels were the time consuming part, just because you have to be careful and go quite slowly. The rest of it should happen fairly quickly, although that is always me to underestimate how long it's going to take to do something. So to make the handles, I've got these 12-inch by 4-inch strips, and first of all you want to fold it in half and press a crease line in, and then you're going to fold each half into the centre again. And then press the whole thing in half. And now I'm going to run a 1/4 inch seam up both sides of the handle. So you actually just need to run 1/4 inch seam up just to secure it, but it just looks a little bit more uniform, a little bit more tidy if you do them up both sides. So I'm ready to attach the handles now. And what I'm going to do is first I'm going to sew along the bottom and catch the handles here, and then I will fold this back on itself, and then I'll sew a second seam along the top of this 1-inch seam here, and it'll be secured in 2 spaces and folded back like so. So I'll show you how I do that. So I'm sewing the handles on now, and I'm going to have a 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to do this edge to the inside of the bag first. You want to do the fold edge second. When that's folded up, it just means that the handle will sit quite neatly. So I think you can see why I didn't double up this seam here. You can see the machine is already, just lift the toe a little bit there, the foot, sorry. You can see that my machine's already really being stretched. It's just a domestic machine. So by the time I double those handles back, I'm really asking a lot of it, but it's done all 6 bags without complaint, so I'm pretty happy with it. And like I say, you're going to fold these back, and I do clip them in place again, just so you can feel that they're aligned straight along the previous line. Then you're going to go again with a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm ready to sew the name label onto the bag, but to do this I need to remove my 1/4 inch foot that I've used for all my seams and piecing work, and I'm going to put on this wide-toed presser foot, which is going to be
useful for the zigzag stitch. It just gives the needle space to room to space. It gives the needle space to move, and also it has this lovely center point here, so you can align the join right along the needle point. I'm just going to cut those little bits off, and you get half of your zigzag stitch on one side and half on the other. Now for the French seams, I'm going to sew the bag outside like this. I'm going to do a scant 1/4 inch on the outside, and then I'll turn it inside out and I'll do a 1/2 inch seam on the inside, and that just tucks all the raw edges neatly away. So that's the first part of the French seam done. So I'm going to turn it inside out now, and then to turn my corners out I just use the end of a chopstick. And even though these are going on the inside of the French seam, I'm still going to do that because it'll just help with placement of the second part of the seam and make sure that it's looking nice and as neat and tidy as possible, really. And then I'm ready to do a 1/2 inch seam. Okay, time to see if they've turned out okay. So they need a couple of little bits trimming out of them, but the seams are nice and tidy on the outside and tidy on the inside too. No raw edges to show there. And again, just using my chopstick, I'm going to turn out my corners. And then other than just a few loose threads to snip, that's all 6 bags done. Just ready to fill with goodies for the party tomorrow. I really do like to cut things fine. So now for the best bit, we're going to add the party favours into the bags. So if you do want to make these bags, what I would say is think about the largest item you're going to put in the bag and then figure out your dimensions for that. That's what I did. So these Elma books, and Evelyn's getting Elma's birthday, were the largest item. So I measured them and then added 1.5 inches to accommodate the French seam, plus a little bit of wiggle room, because you don't want to have to be like ramming it into the bag. Do you want a little bit of space to get it in? So the Elma book fits in there snug, but it does fit in. And then they've got these lovely little woodland creatures jigsaw puzzles, which I think is a lovely little touch as well, because I think I've already said, but the party theme is Evelyn is a whimsical one, so it's kind of woodland and fairies, that kind of thing. Then they have, it's like a little jigsaw, you turn the pieces round and make the little animals on there. So again, another little wooden toy. And then a little tube of bubbles for blowing bubbles. And I'm going to give Evelyn this little pink. So these are like little shakers. So take them out of the wrapper first. Sorry for the rustling. And they're just cute, like little bugs. So this is like a little pink sort of ladybug shaker. Evelyn loves making noise and making music. So that's going to be the party bag. And we have 6 of those now all ready made up. I think if I was a 1-year-old at a party and I got some lovely gifts in a personalised bag, I'd be really happy. That's everything that I have to share for this week. Thank you so much again for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed, subscribing is completely free and it would just help me out if you could do that. To everybody who has already subscribed, a huge thank you. I've been overwhelmed by the amount of support and encouragement that I've had on the journey so far. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to say my goodbyes now before I leave you with some footage of the animals in the snow from earlier this week. Until next time, you take good care of yourselves and we'll speak soon.